closer to the playoffs. Only a day away from official playoff matchup starting, but we still have the Western Conference last spot to get through tonight. The 8th seed will be decided as the Memphis Grizzlies take on the Golden State Warriors. But on today's episode of the NBA Exchange, we're going to take a breakdown and look at all the playoff matchups. To look at all the playoff matchups, I had to bring in a Brooklynite. Had to bring in my guy, Michael Scotto. He's an NBA writer and podcast host for Hoops Hype. Mike, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Dexter? Always great to talk with you, my man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad to have you on the NBA Exchange. I'm glad to see your face once again. It's been quite a while since we've seen each other, even though we don't live that far, but it's nice to see you, man. Definitely
Back at you. I'm looking forward to when we could get together in person again soon. It's almost time. We're there.
Almost time. We are almost there. Glad you were well. Playoff season is upon us, like I talked about. And I wanted to go through some of these matchups with you and just give me your thoughts really quick on what you think about this. Let's start in the East first with the Philadelphia 76ers. They're the number 1 seed. They will be taking on the number 8 seed Washington Wizards. Philadelphia has had a very strong year. The Wizards, an amazing rise and comeback just to get into the postseason. Who do you like in this matchup? Do the Wizards have any chance of making things tough for Philadelphia?
I think there's going to be as much talk about the drama and the storyline between Russell Westbrook and Joel Embiid, but in terms of the teams themselves, not real. And, this isn't any disrespect to the Wizards, but no, I mean, Philadelphia has been on a great run this season, and they have a much more balanced team overall. They have the depth. To me, I think Philadelphia, if they're clicking on all cylinders, should either sweep the series or, maybe if they lost the game. But to me, Philadelphia's got a really strong chance, obviously, against the Wizards at this point.
Is there anything the Wizards can do if you had to pick in games? Do you think the Wizards get a game or two out of here, or do you see this as a sweep for the 76ers?
I do think ultimately it'll be a sweep for the 76ers, but to your question, is there anything that the Wizards can do? I mean, obviously you're going to need a triple-double effort from Russell Westbrook, but you're going to need guys like Davis Bertans to really pick up the slack and extend the defense and provide a lot of shooting. I think that's going to be key. Is Brad Beal clicking on all cylinders? You're definitely going to need 30-plus points from him, I think. It's a very tough task for Alex Len or any center in the league to have to try to stop Joel Embiid. So that's going to be too much of a task, I think, for the Washington Wizards going up against the Philadelphia 76ers in the first round.
All right, there we go. Looking at a potential Sixers sweep from our man Michael Scotto. Next series, let's keep it in the East. But I think this is one of the tougher ones for people to pick, Mike. Bucks, they're the 3 seed against the 6 seeded Miami Heat, a rematch of last year's second round matchup down in the bubble where we saw the Heat sweep the Bucks. Mm-hmm. Do you like the Bucks to get their revenge here, or are the Heat still dangerous?
Dexter, going into this matchup, do I like the Bucks? Yes. I think there's a lot of pressure on this team. They've got to, in acquiring Drew Holiday, it was made clear basically that their goal is to get to the finals. And you have Giannis in his prime. He re-signed. So Chris Middleton has been an all-star caliber player. This is probably one of the toughest matchups I think they could have gotten, though. The Miami Heat are a well-coached team. Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo bring it on the offensive and defensive end. I think that this could go the full length of the series. They're that close together, in my opinion. When I look at the Miami Heat, I think they are built for playoff basketball as opposed to maybe, the regular season. I know they had a little bit of times where they were up and down, but, it's interesting because Brook Lopez can stretch the defense. Bam would have to come out and guard him. At the same time, Bam is more athletic. Can he get Lopez in foul trouble? And then again, you've got with the Bucks, the combination of Middleton and Holiday in the backcourt, where that could be a little bit difficult for Miami. Jimmy Butler can only guard one of those guys. So that's going to be interesting. And then obviously you've got Giannis. They want to limit him in transition if they can. I do think it goes the full length of the series. I just think ultimately in the end, Milwaukee wins. I will say that just based on them having a little bit more talent, in my opinion, to get it done.
All right, Bucks in 7. Should be a really tight one. I think it's going to be a great series, too.
I'm looking forward to it for sure. I think it's the best series of the first round. I really do.
I'd have to agree with that. I definitely think so. I think it's going to be one of the toughest. It's one of the toughest to pick. It could be one of the most entertaining to watch for sure. All right, let's bring it back to Brooklyn, our home borough. The Nets, they are the 2 seed. They will be facing the Celtics. They got in, defeating the Wizards on Tuesday night in the play-in tournament. The Celtics have struggled a lot down the stretch. There's no Jaylen Brown. You know all that. Mike, a lot of people have this going to sweep for Brooklyn. Do you see Brooklyn easily disposing of the Boston Celtics here?
I agree, and it should be a sweep for the Nets. And listen, Kyrie Irving, I think, is going to come in, sage and go off. Kyrie has been a lot of people I know talked about him earlier this year, when he had to take some personal time and whatnot, but make no mistake about it, Kyrie Irving had the best season of his career and the most efficient one with a 50, 40, 90 stat line. And, to me, it's ironic because Harden ended up getting hurt, Durant was hurt. Sometimes towards the end of the season, Kyrie was the most visible net of the big three. Having Harden back now, I think they're going to somewhat ease him in. Durant has been highly efficient as well. Boston, I just don't think they have enough firepower, simply put, especially with Jaylen Brown out. If you can lock up Tatum, you should have a pretty decent chance. The one issue for Brooklyn against Boston is going to be the boards. They're going to have to keep Tristan Thompson and Robert Williams off the glass. That's Boston's best chance to make it interesting against the Nets. And we'll see if DeAndre Jordan makes an appearance in the series for his rebounding ability. But, right now it looks like, Blake Griffin and Nick Claxton are going to have to take care of the glass for the Nets. So that'll be the X factor I'm looking at in the series. But I do ultimately think the Brooklyn Nets sweep the Boston Celtics in the first round.
All right, so a Nets sweep over the seas. Moving right along, 4-5 matchup in the East. Another interesting one, Mike. You got the New York Knicks. They have had a tremendous season, better than I think anybody expected. They are the 4 seed going up against the Atlanta Hawks. We've already heard some talk from Nate McMillan about how the NBA wants the Knicks here in the playoffs and wants them to succeed. Really interesting comments there. Who do you like in this matchup? A lot of people, I've been reading around, a lot of experts, a lot of writers, a lot of guys who cover the NBA like us saying that it could go 7. Do you see it going 7, or is it a shorter series?
Yeah, I think it also can go the full distance. And, these guys have played each other very competitively and closely during the regular season. You brought up Nate McMillan's comments. 2 things to me stuck out with that. One, I think Nate, anytime you're putting something out there like that in the media, I think it's a little bit of subliminal messaging, trying to make sure that, a little gamesmanship to try to get some calls. I just thought it was interesting because Trae Young gets a ton of calls.
Right.
The Hawks have been really good. You talk about Coach of the Year. Nate McMillan is going to get some votes. I'm not saying first place votes, but he will get some votes for Coach of the Year. He's done a great job with the Hawks since taking over for Lloyd Pierce. They found their identity. The one thing I would say is I know they're a younger team with their stars and Trae Young, John Collins, and a lot of the other guys on the staff. I was just a little perplexed that maybe that would be kind of a quote in any way before a series. Now, granted, coaches get asked questions and things like that, and they have to respond. Context is important, but to me, they're a really good team, and they've been playing well. I would just hope that doesn't give the Hawks players maybe a little less confidence going in. Like, to me, I just think that I do think they have more talent overall than the Knicks. The Knicks are doing it on the defensive end of the ball. Tom Thibodeau's got them first in opponents' points allowed, field goal percentage. They've really done a good job and embodied Tibbs' mindset. That's why he is a leading candidate, probably with Monty Williams for Coach of the Year. And that said, and Quinn Snyder as well. That said, to me, I think that it goes the distance. And I got to tell you, Dex, there have been nights where I've kind of flipped a coin on this because I think they're both that close at times, even though they play different styles. But I think ultimately the Hawks, because they have more offensive firepower, will pull this out.
All right, so you see this going the distance too. Hawks at 7. That's going to be a really, really interesting series. Nice contrast of styles. Let's move over to the Western Conference, Mike, and what's going on there. This is probably, I think, there's a couple series in the Western Conference that are going to be really interesting. Let's start with this one first. The 3rd-seeded Nuggets. They will be taking on the 6th-seeded Portland TrailBlazers. Nuggets, great season. Have the front runner for MVP in Nikola Jokic, but they lost Jamal Murray, arguably their second-best player. Michael Porter Jr.'s looked well in the recent couple of weeks. The Blazers have played well in the last couple of weeks. This is another tough one, Mike. Who do you like here, Nuggets or Blazers?
It's a tough one, and I think that speaks to as much Damian Lillard's impact this year with Portland. But if I'm picking, and you're pointing one in my head, I got to go with the Denver Nuggets to me, because despite Jamal Murray's injury, they have played well since his injury, and I think Aaron Gordon for them has been a missing piece. He's kind of been the replacement to Jeremy Grant that they've desperately needed prior to his acquisition via the trade with the Orlando Magic. Now, one thing about Nikola Jokic, who is the clear frontrunner for the MVP award at this point, this season he's had 5 40-point games. That's more than he's had in the previous 5 seasons combined. He's stepped up his game offensively and been a go-to guy for the Nuggets. I think that's incredibly noteworthy considering they have to replace the firepower from Jamal Murray. I think, like I said, Gordon can help guard on the perimeter and in the paint as well. I think for Portland, Damian Lillard's going to have to go off. I expect Norman Powell to have a good series. I just think overall Denver advances. I don't know if it goes the distance. I could see it maybe 6 or so, but it's going to be a competitive series. And, for Portland, I think the big thing that's going to be interesting is the long-term future of Terry Stotts. We've seen some speculation and stuff out there about his future. Big series for the Portland TrailBlazers, the team that made a bunch of acquisitions as well to try to take that next step in the West, which is just so loaded every year. So it's going to be time to, in a sense, put up or shut up.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. A lot of it's going to come down to Dame. Could be game time needed for the TrailBlazers unless they plan to blow things up after. So we'll see. All right, you got Nuggets in 6 there. Let's look at another series, rematch of a first-round matchup last year that was entertaining in the beginning, and a lot of people thought the underdog team had a chance to win. That's the Mavericks. They are taking on the Clippers in the 4-5 matchup, the Clippers being the 4 seed. Yeah. Last game of the season, we know the Clippers tried to avoid the Lakers. We all saw that. We all know that. And the Mavericks have Doncic out of this world. This is big for the Clippers. Clippers have a lot to prove, Mike, in this postseason. They're sort of flying under the radar here. And the Mavericks are a team who they want to prove something. How do you see this series going? Is there any chance we see a Mavericks upset here?
I could see it going 6. I do think ultimately the Clippers should pull this out on paper, but it's going to be closer. You saw that, even dating back to last year when these teams had faced off. Doncic, I don't think, the Clippers could put Kawhi on him for stretches, but they're not going to do that, I don't think, the whole game. So that's going to be interesting to see. They've got a really good defensive team. The X factor, you look at Porzingis in that sense. Is he going to be able to stretch the defense efficiently? Can he stay healthy? That's going to be key. I just think that, for the Clippers, you've got a lot riding on this with free agency for Kawhi Leonard. So to me, Paul George, I do think Paul George is going to have a better playoffs than he did last year. Just because, he's not in the bubble. I do think that had a bit of an effect on him. And so it is going to be close, but I do think ultimately the Clippers pull this out.
All right, Clippers in 6. That'll be interesting as well. Moving right along, the second-seeded Phoenix Suns. They've been one of the surprises. I think a lot of people thought, Mike, that Chris Paul would absolutely have an impact on the Suns, and he has. They were very close to having the top spot in the West. He's had a tremendous impact. They've had a great season. Their reward for being the second seed, they'll play the Los Angeles Lakers, right? The defending champions who got in with that great win over the Warriors in the play-in tournament the other night. Who do you like this? Is this trouble for the Suns? Are King James and the Lakers getting their act together at the right time? And do you see them knocking off the second seed Suns?
It's tough. It's tough. And
it's a tough one. I know. I know.
Even like as you and I, as you put it out there, you know, it could go 7 games. And I think then it's almost a little bit of a coin flip in the sense that, you know, as long as LeBron's ankle can stay healthy, that's priority number one. I think Phoenix is going to have a tough time with Anthony Davis. I know they have Ayton, but I really think it's going to be tough if he goes out more to the perimeter a little bit. You know, Chris Paul has been a revelation for Phoenix. You know, we saw what he did with the Thunder when people thought that they were going to be a lottery team, and he's taken that Suns team that from, you know, trying to make the playoffs last year without him to the top of the West. I'm a little bit concerned with some of the stuff I saw from the Lakers against the Warriors in the play-in tournament. But that said, you know, Dex, it's honestly hard for me. I flipped the coin. I really did, but I do think it goes 7. And that again to me it speaks to anytime when you're going up against the defending champs. That's my respect to Chris Paul, because he has done such a good job with that team, and obviously the job that Monty Williams has done. You know, Mikal Bridges as well has been not a guy that would win the Most Improved Player of the Year award, but he certainly made strides in his development. But I think it goes down to the wire, and it's kind of a coin flip personally for me.
Coin flip there can go either way. All right, we'll see how that goes. The 7-game series will be very interesting with the Lakers and the Suns and the defending champs, but potentially being on the ropes and not making it out of the first round. That'll be very interesting. All right, last series in the West. We do not know the opponent for the Utah Jazz, who are the top seed, but that'll come down to tonight's matchup versus Memphis and Golden State. Do you give either of those teams, Memphis or Golden State, any shot at knocking off Utah, who had the best record in the league, top ranked in a lot of categories in offense and defense? Do either of those teams have a shot of knocking off the Jazz?
You know, I think Memphis is going to be another player away, but I like the trajectory for that team long term with John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. I just don't think if they advance, that they would have a shot going up against Utah. Anytime Steph Curry's on the floor, I give his team a chance. The guy's played out of his mind. He's had arguably the best season of his career in the sense that this guy's getting double teamed every night. And he doesn't have as much offensive firepower around him. You know, the little handoff game between him and Draymond Green at the top of the key and getting picks and letting shots fly has been remarkable to see. He's been efficient as well. To me, ultimately, Utah should prevail. They've got the continuity. They've got arguably the best depth in the league. And obviously, they're well coached. Quinn Snyder's going to get votes for Coach of the Year. You know, if it's Memphis, I do think it's probably a sweep. If it's the Warriors, I could see it going 5 or so. But I do think ultimately Utah wins. This has to be their year, by the way. You know, I know you got to keep an eye on Donovan Mitchell and his health, but you know, Rudy Gobert, once again, a leading candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. He would join some elite company and guys that have won the award 3 years or more. 3 times or more. And so, to me, overall, this has got to be the year that Utah makes that stride to get as close to the finals as possible. Given everything with COVID and their continuity, it's their best chance overall. Mike Conley becoming an all-star for the first time. You would think on paper the stars are aligning for Utah to make a deep run.
You would think so. When we talk about all these first-round matchups, Mike, a lot of them we talked about, and think people listen to this, we have a lot of competitive series, which makes this so interesting, makes it so hard to pick. So before I get you up out of here, who's your pick? Western Conference team to go to the finals, Eastern Conference team to go to the finals. Who do you see playing in the NBA Finals this year?
I think in the East, it's the Nets, and that's simply on the big three. And they have a lot of great depth as well on that team. It's going to be a tough road. I think Philadelphia has an easier road than them if the bracket shakes out. But ultimately, when you have three elite players, I have to bet on that talent. And I think then in the West
is tough, man.
And again, it's not like, you go. It's funny. We go into the conversation and I have an idea of who I want to say, and then you think about it more, and it's just such a toss-up. I would enjoy it. I think it would be fun if a team like the Suns, made it, but it's such a crapshoot. It really, we've seen it so many times. I think in the West, it's funny, when I look at the East, sometimes you could say maybe more the seeds will play out. The West, I think, is matchups.
Yes, who knows?
On any given night, you're talking about guys that, we talked about, if the Warriors advanced against Utah, Steph Curry can win a series on his own. I'm sorry. He's that elite of a player. So while it would be a daunting task, anything is possible. I don't know if the Suns are ready ultimately, though, because they still do have some young guys. I know Chris Paul. I know what I'm getting from Chris Paul. I have a good idea what I'm getting from Booker. I want to see some of the other guys like Ayton and Bridges, but you know what? I might as well talk it out through with you. Even the Clippers.
That's what we're here for. Yeah.
Even the Clippers, brother. You think Paul George is going to have a better playoff run, but if he doesn't, then they're out. The Lakers are looking a little bit shaky, but, again, they have LeBron. It's hard to go against them. Utah on paper, had a great season start to finish, but I have always had this belief that second round or the following round, they would just get knocked out, because when you're in the playoffs, elite players, like Gobert's an elite defender and Donovan Mitchell is an all-star, and he had a great playoff run last year. But I just worry that an elite star on another team could take over. So you know what? I don't know. I really don't, and I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to say that because it's so, competitive in the West in that regard. I just think I'll say this, Dexter. When you look at the Nets in the East, boy, if the big three don't get to the finals, they are going to get roasted like a Thanksgiving turkey on Twitter. Okay?
They are.
That I could see. How about you? If you were going to pick, who would you say?
Man, are you putting the pressure back on me? I like this. I had Mo Hamilton on here. He did the same thing to me. I think the Lakers are going to get it together. I think if they're healthy, I'm going to pick them out the West because I think their defense is just too good. I liked how their defense has been without the role players. In the East, I'm a little bit concerned about the Nets defensively in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I'm inclined to, and I like the way you mentioned this before, I like the way the bracket, if it all holds to form, can break out for the Sixers, and they can have an easier path. I'm going to go with the Sixers. I'm going to go Sixers-Lakers. Okay. A little rematch of 2001. we'll get here way back when I was a senior in high school. Going back then. I'm going to go Sixers-Lakers here. That'll be my pick. That'll be my pick there. But you know what? I can't blame you on the West, Mike. It's so tough, like you said. It's a crapshoot in the West. Would it shock you if the Lakers got knocked off by the Suns? No. Wouldn't shock me at all. Would it shock me if I'd be a little bit shocked maybe if Utah got to the finals because I feel the same way you do, whereas that I kind of don't know if they're going to get past the second round. Could the Clippers get there? Sure, they could. It's tough. It's a crapshoot. I can't blame you. Thank you, man. You went through all the series in the first round with me. You gave me your expert knowledge, your picks. We're so glad we were able to have you on the NBA exchange. We appreciate you so much, Mike.
My pleasure, brother. Anytime. It's always fun to catch up with you, and like I said, even talking it out with you as we were going through the picks, it was just a lot difficult, more difficult in the West because teams top to bottom. It's such an elite conference. Not a knock on the East, just I think the East is going to play out more traditionally to the seeds and the playoff bracket, but a lot of fun. It's good to see you, brother. I'm glad that you and your family are all doing well, and hopefully we can get up in person soon.
Thank you, man. That is my man, Michael Scotto from HoopsHype. Thanks, Mike, for joining the NBA Exchange. Appreciate you.
You got it, brother. Anytime.